Hello. In this video, I'm going to tell you a little bit about my project, the Section Properties Calculator. The Section Properties Calculator is a piece of mechanical engineering software that I wrote for a company that I started called VisualCalcs. The idea behind this software is that mechanical engineering, structural analysis software in particular, really shouldn't be too much more complex than Microsoft Paint to use. Essentially, this software replaces expensive and kind of slow CAD packages for doing some really specific structural engineering tasks. So I'm really drawing on my experience in the aerospace industry to create a tool that's been really helpful to me as I've done my job as an aerospace engineer, and I hope also is helpful to other people as well. So let's dive in. This is the Section Properties Calculator tool. You can get there by going to VisualCalcs.com or to my portfolio site, dthomas.io. From that site, you can actually also take a look at the source code for this, the front end and the back end. So the front end of this is written in plain old vanilla JavaScript. There's quite a lot of HTML5 canvas used in this project. And then the back end is a Flask server running Python. So essentially what this software does is it calculates section properties, which are really important in understanding the structural properties of beams. So this is essentially drawing software, kind of like traditional CAD software. And as you'll see on the left-hand side here, you have a bunch of tools that kind of make sense for CAD software. But let's start off drawing some lines. Let's make a little cross-section and find out what the properties of this cross-section are. We're going to drag and release to draw a line, and let's say this line is 5. We'll say inches or bananas or whatever. As you can see, it's got a dimension tag, which we can move around wherever we want, or we can just leave it where it was. Let's draw some other lines, and as you can see, we've got lots of snapping options that allow us to go at 45, 30, 60, or 90. And let's make this, let's make it 0.2 bananas. Here we go. You can also see that the snapping works across lines, so it's pretty easy to draw kind of standard shapes using this software. Let's make this guy, I don't know, 3 inches. We'll make it a asymmetrical beam. So it comes over here. Let's make this 1.75, a nice round number. We'll drag this down, and we'll use our snaps. So as you can see, this is pretty standard sort of CAD interaction where you're essentially just drawing lines and dimensioning them. So nothing too crazy there. But let's go ahead and draw this guy. Let's say this is going to be, it's pretty long. Let's say it's 2 inches. And I'll show you some of the things we can do in terms of angular dimensioning. So if we wanted to specify a particular dimension, one of the cool things about this is you can drag tags all over the place. It was really important to me that the software was capable of making visually appealing shapes, just because as an aerospace engineer, I commonly had to copy and paste from some other software into a report, and I just find that if you have lots of adjustability in terms of where you can put dimension tags, it's much easier to make a really clean-looking document. So I spent a lot of time really perfecting exactly how all of this stuff moves. You'll notice you can do interior, exterior angles. But let's make this, I don't know, let's go 125 degrees here. Let's hide this dimension. And we'll keep going with our theme of 0.2 inches. All right, one of my favorite tools, actually a tool that I borrowed from SolidWorks that I've often jokingly said that I really wish Microsoft Paint had, is this Snipping Tool. So what this does is it allows you to trim lines to an intersection. So for that sort of situation, it's really clean, really simple. We can also add fillets. Let's add a little fillet right here. Yeah, let's do it right here. I think that looks a little more realistic, as if this beam is realistic. Just so you know, this is not a standard aerospace structures beam that I'm drawing here by any means. As you see, you've got a 0.2 inch radius here. And we still have this dimension here. Let's clean up our dimensions a little bit. Maybe we want to know that this is 5 inches. This gives us our thickness. Obviously, you can do this in an infinite amount of ways to your liking so that you make sure you have the dimensions that you need on your report. So to analyze this, we just go ahead and click Get Section Properties. So right now it's packaging up all of this geometry and it's sending it to the back end, which is an API that does the calculation to give us our results. And you'll notice you get 6 actual decimal places of precision. So all of these can be trusted. It's been verified very thoroughly. And if you're familiar with mechanical engineering, these results might make sense to you, might mean something to you. If not, essentially all you're doing is you're taking these calculations and using them to figure out the stress in the material due to some load. So that's something that you do all the time as a structures stress engineer and civil engineering. And essentially this tool is optimized to be able to just address that problem without having to load a bunch of software suites to do so. This is available on a subscription basis, so companies can buy licenses a month at a time for much less than you'd pay for traditional AutoCAD or SolidWorks or something like that. There's some other features here that I haven't talked about that in the interest of time I'll just kind of tell you that they exist and you can go play with this yourself. One thing you can do is you can draw construction lines. So these are lines that don't count in the analysis, but they're really, really useful for just figuring out distances between things. You can do group erase of things, just like that. We've got undo and redo, of course. You can clear the whole screen, adjust the amount of decimals that you actually see displayed on the screen, and you can save and load your shapes. Also, if you click on the logo up here, or this help button, you'll be taken to VisualCalcs.com, and that will show you basically all of the documentation that I've created for this. It's a pretty extensive library telling you, what errors mean and explaining the finer points of all the ways you can interact with this and draw sections. So that's the section properties calculator. I hope you've enjoyed this explanation, and I highly encourage you to go to my portfolio site, dthomas.io, where you can see the code for this, and you can actually also go play with it yourself and see what you think. So thanks for listening.